the time I worked at the mall and I was a manager at a retail store, and he would randomly just come to the store. And he made it very well known of who he was, that, he's my boyfriend. And he was and it would get to the point where people, I think, started feeling uncomfortable. Like people that I worked with, people, because it was like, why is he randomly just coming there? And sometimes I would be closing up and he would be outside in the parking lot. And he was just like, he was at that point, he was stalking me. And I was like, okay, like he kind of would try to figure out like when I was going for lunch, because he was worried about, at one point, like the security guards talking to me, like to go get my lunch, to have lunch while I was working and stuff. And I was like, all right. But it got really bad that I remember he would just like show up, like just unannounced, just randomly just show up when I was at work and stuff like that. And like, at first it was like cutesy, like, just popping in, yay, your job, whatever. And then after a while it was becoming like, it was like a problem. Like he like had nothing better to do but to come see me at work and make sure, whatever. And I was in a girly store. It wasn't like there's many guys going in there to go hit on me or something, but it was a very weird thing. That was his way of like, that was the jealousy side of him, and controlling side was all coming out while I was at work. Thankfully, I didn't lose my job over it, but I did get warned. And I do remember telling him, like, my manager was like, you can't come in. Like, she was like, it's fine if he's at lunchtime and you're down at the cafeteria, the food court, you have lunch and then you come back. But I don't want to see him in the store. I don't want to see him hanging around the store. I'm going to call security. Like, it had gotten like that. I remember her saying, I will call security, like, on him. And so I told him that. And so that made him really mad. And he kind of like, and I'm pretty sure he probably tried to persuade me to get another job or quit my job. But I loved my job. So I was like, no, I'm not quitting. Like, but it was just one of those, like, I do remember, like, he stalked me at my job. Freaking weird. Yeah, it's so weird. Like, it's weird thinking about it now. Like, I'm like, oh, but at the time it was just kind of like, it's like, oh, that's cute, you have an admirer. Okay, but what is like too far of an admirer? Like, you know what I mean? Like, some things are too far, and that was too far. It was too much.
The whole leaving thing, and to me, it's not so much leaving, but knowing that you will never go back again. Because if you go back once, you will go back twice, 3 times, 4 times. I don't know. You probably lost track of how many times you went back.
And every time you go back, it's worse.
It's worse.
It's never better. It's worse. They might act good for like a week or something, but it always gets worse. And that's why the ones of, unfortunately, like the women that do get either beat to death or murdered or that kind of thing, it's because they went back. Like, they've gone back many, many times and whatever. And finally it's reached that point where it's like, because it escalates, it just keeps going up. It never gets better. They might say, oh, I'll change, or, oh, I'll do counseling, or, oh, they have like a solution to why, like, to help you or whatever. But at the same time, it will always go back to, they don't have the problem, you are the problem. Like, it was always kind of like that. That's why if I questioned anything, it was like, you're a naive young girl and you don't know any better. Like, that's kind of like he kind of had like this way of like, I don't know, just smoothing over and twisting everything. That's like, what's normal and healthy is not actually normal and healthy. This is normal and healthy, but it wasn't.
I mean, I kind of get the cyclical nature of the leaving and going back again. But when you went back, can you remember the frame of mind you were in? I mean, did you like say, oh, I miss him so much, or was he making overtures to you?
I don't remember exactly, because it's been a while, but I do feel like when I look at, it's really weird. Like, when I see a TV show or movie, or even like that podcast and stuff, and I hear them kind of being like, this is what I thought was like normal, and this is what I thought was okay and stuff. I kind of think that that's kind of where I was. and that my brain really thought like this was kind of it. And
so you were kind of gaslighting yourself?
It's kind of like, in a weird way, it's so hard to explain, but it's kind of like you feel like you're so connected to this terrible person and the terribleness, and you feel like nobody will ever understand that terrible feeling and that place. Like, it's like there's like this horrible, sickening bond between you, and you have to like stay there because you're never going to get well. Nobody's ever going to want you. And looking back, I see it as it was my insecurities, my lack of love for myself, coming from, I probably needed, counseling and help after what happened. I needed help mentally dealing with all that stuff. So when I went back, I think it was kind of like I was just at like the bottom of the bottom, where I thought like, and I probably was grieving, and in some ways there was like a lot of grief and pain and suffering. So I really thought like, you deserve this pain and suffering. You deserve this. You deserve whatever he's going to give you. And I know, like, when I went back, it's kind of like, that's what I thought. It's kind of like I was taking it because I really believe like I must deserve this. This must just be what I'm supposed to get, what type of relationship I'm supposed to get. But really, really strange. What really helped me to understand, like, myself on both sides of, and looking myself in the mirror too. Like, it's really weird, is it wasn't until we had lost Gavin, and Michael had he was trying to drink himself to death. And when he went off to get help, I was like just left. And then I was told, go to Al-Anon. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what that is, but I'll check it out, whatever. I went to Al-Anon, and I learned a lot of different aspects about the cycle of like abuse, of alcohol, of addiction, like all that stuff, and where you are mentally, and your codependency, and like there's just so many layers of it. And it was like he had made me so codependent. Like I started with the stalking, like, for example, when he was going to my work every single day, or he'd be in the parking lot. After a while, it became like normal for him to be at my work. So when we were like separating for like this was it, and I was like really getting away, it was like almost uncomfortable for him not to show up, for him not to be like harassing me. And I know that sounds like really weird, but at the same time, when it was weird at first, it became normal, and it became comfortable, and it became like the way of life. And so when it wasn't there anymore, it becomes very uncomfortable. And so one of the things I remember when I first went to a meeting was somebody said, if you're not uncomfortable, like going to a meeting or doing any stuff or hearing this stuff, then you're not learning, you're not changing, you're not whatever. And I didn't understand it until later, when I started working on myself. It's very uncomfortable when you start loving or even liking yourself. Just to like yourself was a big deal. Like, and to shade off or like get rid of all those insecurities and actually be happy with you. It's so uncomfortable. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's so uncomfortable because you're like, like you don't
get attached to your insecurities.
Yeah, you really do. And you're so busy like loving everyone else and everything, like, what I mean, the people around you, that you forget about yourself. So it was like a really eye-opening thing. And then when people would say victim, like, I'm no victim, and whatever, I was like, I'm not a victim either. And then later on, when I would go to more and more and more and hearing more and more, and I was like, oh crap, I was there. But you get into a hole. The hole you start digging, and you start going down, and then you just keep going. And even when you realize you're in your hole, you're like, oh, I'm in a hole. And then you just keep digging. Like, it's like that pity, feel sorry for me and whatever, which, that's fine. Those are your feelings, whatever, but you can't stay there, and you can't keep digging, because if you keep digging, it just gets bigger and bigger and harder to get out, and whatever. And so that's kind of the one things that I realized there's kind of like a cycle. There's a full cycle of like, If you have some type of little tiny insecurity, normally abusers can find it. They
Or they'll
figure
create
out,
them if they can't find them.
yes, they will figure something out, that maybe you're insecure with your body, maybe you're insecure with work, or like they'll find some element to whatever. And then yes, they also like to mess with a bunch of stuff, because if there's so much chaos going on, you're not going to think about it. You're not going to be able to figure anything out. What's normal? What's not normal? How do I get out of here? Because there's just chaos everywhere.
Constantly.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I remember when he was like, your family bad, that friend bad. Like he was literally cutting my ties because he was creating extra chaos all the way around.
I mean, you just keep on throwing shit at people and they just keep dodging it. And you can't win when someone's doing that to you. You just get buried in it. And the only thing you can really do, the only way to win, is just to basically say, I'm tired of shit. I am tired of the person who's throwing shit at me. I need to go away from it. And I just like the way you were explaining it, because there's part of the mentality that if you're not in it, you can't really understand. You can offer people a way out. You can say, I'm always here for you, but you cannot say, I need you to not think the thoughts that you're thinking. I mean, you can't live people's life for them. I mean, you can help them whenever they want help, but you have to sit there and just, because you can't go and scoop people up, because I know that's the problem, is the whole zing back. I mean, it's one of those problems where we were looking at people with hoarding and realizing that there was a real mental illness there, and that it probably had an anxiety disorder as a root. Because what you could do is you could take someone, you could clean their house up, you could take all their pets away except one or two, and there are people who would immediately start, hoarding items, acquiring new pets out of nowhere, picking them up off there were people who would pick them up off the street or take them out of other people's backyards. I mean, these people were, and you're sitting here going, and the one thing is about that there is a kind of, it's not a perfect analogy, but there is an element of denial involved. Because I mean, in a way, if you say, I am in a relationship with a bad person, I am choosing to inflict this pain on myself. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you're blaming yourself. And so either you're saying, I am in this relationship because I want to be, because it's good, or you can say, I'm in a relationship and it's bad, and I am still in this relationship. So it's like, I'm either dishonoring myself or I'm dishonoring the relationship. So I mean, basically, there is no win. There is no way to do it.
I think my last moment that I remember with him was in his house. He had a 2-story house, and I locked myself in the bathroom to get away from him. And he was literally beating the door down. And that's what I remember. And I remember just before this, it was like the same week, I looked around the house and looked around his area, and there was holes in the wall, and they were meant for me. They were meant for me. He was knocking the door so hard into the wall, was putting the doorknobs into the wall with the stoppers. They had stoppers and stuff, and he was still breaking them off. Yeah. And he was just, and there was just holes all over in the wall. And I remember hiding for a very long time in the bathroom, and was just like, I think that was the moment where I'm going to die here. Like, I'm pretty sure that was at my last moment, was I'm going to die in this house and nobody's going to find my body, because, and I stayed in there in the bathroom, had no windows, and I had no way out. Like, I was stuck at this 2-story house, and I just stayed in the bathroom, like I'm pretty sure he might have even had my phone. Like I was like, I'm in here. And I remember he was literally trying to beat the door down. And the best thing that could happen was he had roommates. And the roommates came home, and it had probably been hours. I'm not even sure how long I was in that bathroom. And they just heard him just yelling and cussing me out and trying to beat and get that door down to try to get me to come out, trying to, talk me into coming out, all these different things. And finally, one of the guys like got him like away from the door, and whatever, which I still didn't come out because I was I thought he's gonna throw me out the balcony or something, because he had a balcony like out he had like a slide, like a door right there from the balcony, and there was a balcony, and then down was a pool. I thought I was gonna get flung out the balcony. Like I really had like some ideas I was like, I'm gonna be on a CSI show, like in Las Vegas. Like I really believed this was gonna, and it was like that moment of like, this is it for me. Like this was it. This was that it's gone so far. It's gone so long. He's finally reached that point of whatever. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to die here. Like I'm going to die over here. And so, so finally whatever, I don't know. I think they got him into another room or something. And then one of the other guys came to like let me out basically. And I just remember they had called over so many people. That's what I remember. They knew what was happening, and they had called over, and his sister was there and a bunch of their friends were there. And I remember them just being in all the doorways and down the hallway and downstairs and everywhere. They were just, and I don't know if it was so much of like witnesses of like, you can't do anything because there's too many of us here to do anything. I'm not really totally sure why, but I remember there was just so many of them like getting me out of the house. Yeah. And that was it. There was no going back. And I remember him screaming at me, "You can never come back." And I remember, and I remember screaming back, "I will never come back. Like I will never come back." That was it. So yeah, like it was a very whatever. And I actually think his one buddy, super sweet guy, I actually think he made sure that I actually got home and everything. I think he actually, it was such a weird, crazy situation. And that's what I mean. Like, I understand, like, I totally feel for somebody that's deep in, because I've been there. I've been deep in, and it is, you get to that point where you're like, if you think it in your head, there's no going back. Like you can't. And people do think like, oh, it didn't happen, so I'm good. No, it could happen in the future. Like, you don't know, like it's better to just not find out.
But that's the problem, is you can't see the bars on you cannot see the hole you're in. That's one of the things that thank you for helping me understand that.
It's years of figuring it out, because and hearing from other people that shared stuff that I was like, whoa, I do that, or whoa, I have done that, or I have thought that way. And then thinking I have to work on myself. And I seen such a big improvement of working on myself when I started focusing on like, what do I like? What do I not like? I wasn't like a relationship anymore. Like, this sounds kind of weird, but when you're with somebody, dating, married, doesn't matter. You're with somebody, you're in a relationship, but you're still two individual people. But if you become only the relationship and you're not two individual people, you're not healthy.
No.
And so I become like the relationship. And so that becomes like my thing, where it's like, I get into a point where it's like, I like what they like. I don't like what I like anymore. I don't think for myself. Like, I become what they want to do because it's easier. In my mind, I think it's easier, but the reality is it's not easier. It's actually harder, and it's worse, and it makes you more resentful and makes you more miserable. And there's so many things that, like, so looking at it, that's what it is. You just start digging your own little hole with your shovel, and you just keep going, and you just don't realize it until finally you look around and it's really, really dark, and you're like, how far am I? And then you have to try to figure out how to get out. And that can be so hard. You just don't know. Like there's so many situations you could end up in, I guess you could say, but it's like getting out, being aware, and then getting out when you can. Like
Figuring out how to get out. Biggie.